In today's episode, I'm going to break down 6 different ways that I made money through writing this last quarter. If you're watching my videos, then I feel like there's a pretty good chance you're wanting to do what I do on some level, and so it seemed like it might be helpful to take a quick behind the scenes look into the things that I'm doing and the different ways that I'm making money through writing. Hopefully this will give you a few ideas for additional ways that you can make money right now through your writing, or possibly even how you can make more money from the writing that you're currently doing. I'm going to be telling you what I made for some of this writing and also what I would have charged for the same writing earlier in my career. So whether you are sort of new to the game or have been writing for a few years, you can get an idea of what someone like myself is charging in the industry right now. So with that said, let's dive in. This episode is sponsored by Copy AI, a toolkit that helps writers, marketers, and freelancers skip writer's block completely and quickly create first draft copy for themselves and their clients. If you'd like to get a 30-day free trial, head on over to copy.ai/Jacob. So there were 6 different ways that I used writing to bring in income this last quarter. The first one, and the one that I think was the most interesting from this last quarter, is that I actually did a light rewrite for a sales page. Now, a couple months back, someone reached out to me on Twitter who has a pretty popular following. They have over 300,000 followers on Twitter, and I've been aware of who they are and their brand for probably close to 6 years now. I have never interacted directly with this individual or anyone on his team, but he DM'd me and mentioned that I came highly referred, and he was looking for someone to go through a sales page that had been successful in a previous product launch, but they were approaching a second product launch and he wanted to see if he could make it a little bit better. So this page that he sent me was not bad. It was a solid page that had performed pretty well on his previous launch. I went through and found a few places where the messaging didn't really align with some of the video content that was on the page, and there was a little bit of inconsistency in what was being focused on in certain places in the copy versus others, as well as with the video. So what I focused on is just trying to align everything into a very consistent narrative so that the message that people saw when they first landed on the page all the way through to the end of the page was very consistent. Yes, we went into a couple different things, but always kind of built around this same core message, this same core value proposition. And in the end, I'm really pleased with how it came out. I ended up charging $3,000 for this rewrite. It was not a from scratch rewrite in terms of the actual edits. Some sections I completely rewrote, but a lot of them there was just some minor changes. If this had been during the first couple years of my career, I probably would have charged about $300 for this. So with additional experience, with additional opportunity costs that's occurred over the course of my career, I'm now charging about 10 times the rate for something like this that I would have earlier in my career. So this was the project that I had the most fun with over the last quarter, and I'm really excited to see how it performs when this individual does his round 2 launch. I'm also hoping that afterward, I'll be able to take some of the data from that and put together a little case study. That's something I'll have to discuss with him at the time, but it'd be awesome to be able to share like a direct, page-to-page comparison and really highlight the changes I made and why, so that you guys can learn from that. So moving on to number 2, I also wrote a few blog posts. So as I've told you a few times before, I can pretty much make $1,500 per blog post anytime I want. I have quite a few different brands that are willing to pay me that pretty much at a moment's notice. So I ended up having a project come along that I was interested in, did a few posts, around $2,000 per article, and that was the second way that I made money this last quarter. During the first few years of my career, a similar project I would have probably charged around $100 to $200 per post. So again, operating at about a 10x rate from what I was doing 8-9 years ago. Number 3, I was hired to write the website copy for a local small business. Now, I haven't done this type of project in several years now. For 5 or 6 years, it was like my bread and butter. This was the main type of work I did. Haven't done it in a few years, mostly just because a lot of the other stuff I do tends to be a bit more lucrative, so I haven't really focused as much on these. And partially just because in most cases, these types of projects don't really lead to anything else. You do the website once, maybe you'll get a referral or two, but compared to most of the other things I do, these are kind of dead-end projects. That said, in this particular case, it was someone local here in San Diego who wanted to work with me, and so I like the idea of working with someone local, possibly making a new local connection. I feel like this is probably the area that I'm going to be living long term, so any way to kind of put some roots down, make some connections, great with me. So this guy ended up hiring me to do his financial planning site. It's about 5 pages, and we agreed on $5,000, about $1,000 per page. There are people who charge a lot more for websites than that. For me, this was just a price that made sense for the amount of work that was going to go into it. And then, of course, the supplemental benefit of just connecting with someone locally sort of motivated me to take on this project. And it was fun. It was fun to do some copy for kind of a local service business that I have not done in a little bit. It was a little bit of a throwback. If I had taken on the same project during the first couple years of my career, probably would have charged about $2,000. So, not quite a 10x over the years. Mostly because I'm not really specializing in this type of copy anymore. I'm pretty good at it, but it's not the type of thing that I'm focusing a lot of my time on marketing small local businesses. So it's not nearly as much of my area of expertise as some of these other areas where I have a lot more proof, a lot more data that I can show, where I'm just a lot more confident that hey, this extra couple thousand you're paying me that you wouldn't need to pay to someone else is going to have a notable ROI for your business that you wouldn't get from someone else. With a small business, I don't think anyone should be paying more than $5,000. So even if they were willing to pay me more money, I wouldn't be looking to charge more than that, because if my opportunity cost was higher, I would say, as I do in many other cases, hey, it's just not worth paying me at my opportunity cost to come work on this when you could find someone else who's probably going to be just as good for a significantly cheaper cost. So moving on to number 4, I made money by selling products through my site. So this is writing because not only are my products mostly writing based, 2 recent products that I launched are kind of more video based, but for the most part, most of my stuff is writing based. And then also all my marketing tends to be writing based. Yes, I have the YouTube videos, but the vast majority of my visitors come through SEO, which is coming through these long form blog posts. So the whole ecosystem is very writing heavy. And that's where I make a decent chunk of my income currently. This is not something that I did at all through the early stages of my career. It was on my radar from very early on. It was something I was interested in doing at some point. But through the first, 7-ish years of my career, I didn't feel qualified to train anyone yet. And I also, I didn't necessarily see any gap in the market that was worthwhile for me to come in and create a product to fill. I was aware of some of the deficiencies with various products on the market, but it wasn't until my 8th year that I realized what had really caused my career to accelerate so much faster and further than many other copywriters was my ability to find, close, and bring clients to me. It wasn't even necessarily my writing skills, although those have definitely grown, and I've been very intentional about growing those over the years. My kind of superpower was just the ability to go out and get clients and to sell and to build the business side of freelancing as a writer. So once I realized that was the unique piece that I had to offer, well, then there was a product there. So that allowed me to sort of pursue that side of things and add that facet to my brand. And then, of course, because I had gotten so good at the actual writing over the years, I was able to write content that ranked very highly in SEO. And you can find me when you search copywriter, website copywriting, email copywriting, copywriting books, copywriting tips. I'm just working my way down the list. Moving on to number 5, a content-based site which I purchased 2 years ago using income from my freelance writing, has been growing in income over those last 2 years by me adding additional written content to the site. This site made $3,700 in ad revenue in October. I think it was like $3,800 in September and maybe like $3,200 in August or something like that. Crossed 3,000 all 3 months. And I'm hoping we'll cross 4,000, possibly even 5 in November and December. That tends to be the 2 biggest months of the year. We'll see. So that's another way that writing is bringing in money. I was originally planning to hold on to this site long term, but given where valuations are at right now, I'm strongly considering selling it in January. There's the potential for me to make about 4 to 5 years worth of revenue off of the sale. So if that's the case, if I can get around $200K for a site I spent $60K on 2 years ago, I think I'm going to go ahead and sell it and consider that a nice little flip. And then I'll probably put that money into, buying 1 or 2 additional sites. So we'll see. Lots of possibilities. And finally, number 6, a brand that I love paid me money to write for you guys. To send videos and emails to you. That's obviously Copy AI. In most sponsorship scenarios, the brand will come to the creator and say, hey, here's some money, promote us. In this case, it was the exact opposite. I came across Copy AI, really loved what they were doing, really saw a lot of potential for it to help copywriters in their own processes. And I reached out originally with the thought of working with Copy AI full time. And digging into the specifics of what they were looking for, realized that didn't really make sense. So instead, I invested in the company, in their seed round, and asked them if they were interested in sponsoring my newsletter and YouTube videos, and they were. And so it's kind of a cool little fit. I was able to help them create their value proposition tool, which I now use every time I'm going to write a value proposition. It saves me a lot of time in brainstorming ideas, phrases, just getting myself out of the box a little bit. And then this last week, I've actually been helping them improve several other tools as well, including their blog post headline tool, their email subject line tool, and then tagline tool, and a couple other ones. So if you've been using the product, I'd recommend revisiting those tools here in the next week or two, because I think we've been able to get the outputs significantly better than what were there before. And if you haven't tried it out, head on over there. If you click on the link that's in the description of the video, or just navigate to copy.ai/Jacob, you can get a 30-day free trial. Super helpful tool, highly recommend. And that is the 6th way that I've been bringing income into my brand through writing. Hope that was helpful, and I will catch you guys in the next episode.